order. And
can you please use your mics this morning, please?
If I know how. No. Yeah. Okay. There you go. So we'll call it to order and start with the land acknowledgement. We respectfully acknowledge that we live and work in Mi'kmaq as a steward of the ancestral territory of the Mi'kmaq people. We are all treaty people. And just before I get into it, I just want to, I thank y'all for being here. I know that this is an issue that a lot of people have an interest and various opinions on. And I just want to state that because staff are under a lot of pressure, and this is not the only issue that we're dealing with, obviously. There are a lot of land issues and land use policy issues on the table at the moment, and they're very complex. And staff are only following the direction of council. They're not doing anything on their own. And I just want you to understand that you know they're under a lot of stress, and they're trying to do their best, but it's not what they think is best, it's what council directs them to do. So if you have, if you're mad at somebody, get mad at us. That's what I want you to do. Okay, so thank you. So the agenda, general, oh no, I don't need that. Public hearing report. Gareth, I guess that would be. Yes.
Yeah. Good morning, Council. So, as we do with all public hearings, I'll just quickly review the public hearing report here, which essentially summarizes the file and all of the actions, the meetings, and the advertisements that were taken to get us to this point, following our normal process for planning strategy amendments. So the request date of the file was June 27th, 2024. There were no fees required, as this was a request initiated by council, not by a specific applicant or landowner. The nature of the proposed amendments, of course, is to remove the protected watershed zone from lands surrounding Spectacle Lake and rezoning lands to the mixed-use zone south of Highway 3. 103, excuse me, and to the general basic zone north of Highway 3. So essentially the amendments would be changes to the zoning map and the municipal planning strategy designation map, which currently shows the area as an environmental designation that supports the protected watershed zone. In terms of meeting dates, we had the initial meeting with council on June 27th. We held a public information meeting on August 15th in this room. We then brought it to the Municipal Planning Advisory Committee on August 21st for consideration. The Municipal Planning Advisory Committee members provided a recommendation that was slightly, was a little bit different than what the staff recommendation had been. So the Municipal Planning Advisory Committee recommended implementing the lakeside zone, which is a zone that the council created in response to requests from applicants around Sherbrooke Lake. It limits residential density. It significantly limits any commercial opportunities. It requires vegetated buffers, but it is intended to allow development in the zone, unlike the protected watershed zone, which allows virtually no development. There are a few exceptions there. So the MPAC members felt that if we were going to remove the protected watershed zone, we should replace that with the lakeside zone at a depth of 300 meters around the lake. Came back to council September 12th for first reading, and at that point, council had discussion and disagreed with that recommendation of MPAC and gave first reading to the initial staff recommendation, which was to replace it with mixed-use zone and general basic zone. So there were a series of reports, staff report presented to the Municipal Planning Advisory Committee, which forms part of this package here. It was updated for council. We did our standard advertising for all of the meetings that we held. So that's in the local newspaper, on social media, on the website, and on the office doors. As well as through our municipal notifications that we send out to anybody who's subscribed for email alerts. Yes, so I think that essentially concludes the the public hearing report.
Okay. Thank you. And Mr. Lamy, I forgot to ask you whether this was properly before council.
Yes, I believe it is, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, just making sure.
Yeah.
Okay, so we have a variety of written submissions which have been available to all council members. And now it's open to comments from the public. So if you just please put your hand up and come up front and identify yourself. Yeah.
I sit or stand?
Whichever was your most comfortable.
All right, thank you. My name is Barb Fry, and I live at Main Street here in Chester. When water security appears to be top of mind for the residents of this municipality, the proposal to rezone the known protected watershed area of Spectacle Lake in favor of the unknown impacts of a mixed-use and general basic zone make no sense. Council, you've done your homework on this issue, and so have the residents of this community. I'm sorry.
That's all right.
Okay, I hope this works. Let me know if it doesn't. Better?
Yeah.
Okay. You've witnessed the increasing number of residents attending council meetings. You've heard their vociferous responses to plans for development, and you've experienced the growing tensions over their fears of water insecurity. In response to all of this, and considering the proposed amendment to rezone Spectacle Lake, the question for each of you must be, as a member of this council in service to the greater good, what is my best decision today as I prepare to vote? As elected stewards of this municipality, you know that your accountabilities and responsibilities lie in making those best possible decisions. As resident members of this community, we share in that accountability and responsibility. The 2021-24 Strategic Priorities document gives evidence of your service plan. More than a to-do list, it speaks to your intentions to strengthen the health and well-being of our communities. Implicit in this plan is the promise of possibility, of the requirement to work together to create our collective future. Achieving successful outcomes for these priorities will depend on the quality of our relationships. It was once said that, quote, community grows out of the possibility of citizens. When all citizens work together to create healthy communities, they thrive. Right now, it seems as if we're struggling to survive. However, that situation can change when we consider possibilities. For example, what are the possibilities if council voted against the proposal to rezone Spectacle Lake? What are the possibilities for building new relationships among council and residents as we consider our collective future? What if the spirit of community, collaboration, cooperation, and partnership shaped how we relate to one another in working together? In what ways could the election of a new council open the door to new possibilities? I urge this council to vote no to rezoning. Doing so will give space for the unfolding of countless possibilities, new ways of being, and the best hope for creating our future as a thriving community. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next person who wishes to speak? Oh.
Good morning. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm Susan Crocker. I reside at 67 Water Street. I have a simple message this morning. I've been attending meetings as soon as I became aware of this particular issue. It's interesting when I look at the calendar, the schedule of communication that was shared by the senior planner a moment ago. It showed that this has rolled out during prime time of the summer when people are distracted. It's been a very short time frame. So you think about the seriousness of this issue, the issue of removing protections around a very important area of our municipality. And this has been a very short time frame. But more importantly, it's been the cart before the horse. Without having a comprehensive strategy and program to initiate improvements in water protection and in water sourcing for this community, you're going and doing away with the protections around one of the options that there is a great deal of doubt around. There's those that feel it's not viable, but there's also been information come to light that shows that there hasn't necessarily been a thorough and updated assessment of the potential of Spectacle Lake. And as we heard at last week's meeting, the potential to do more to improve the health of that watershed to make it viable. So I guess I sit here as we are 2 weeks away or a week and a half away from electing a new council, and I think, what is it that this council is going to be remembered for and wants to be remembered for? Like, what is going to be the great accomplishment? And I can't think of one so far. I think that it's been about trying to move forward a very complex and comprehensive change in planning guidelines and bylaws for this municipality, which has been done with a struggle because it has been so complex and all-encompassing. But I think where you're going to get to, if you vote in favor of removing these protections, your legacy is going to be undermining our capacity to develop a comprehensive water program, water plan and solution for this community, ignoring the voices of your citizens and ignoring the circumstances that are going on in terms of our broader environment. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hello,
Hey,
my name is Jimmy Ravies, been up here before. How you doing? As you know, like, we have a housing shortage problem. I own property around there. I do want to build some homes, and I'm wondering why the restrictions are what they are. They're kind of harsh in my mind. For instance, in Mahone Bay, there's no structure shall be within 8 meters of the water protection course shown on municipality planning strategy map 1. That's by the Mahone Bay land use law. For Bridgewater, it says, in accordance with secondary planning strategy policy 4.1 and development near to a significant water course shown in Schedule C of the land used by the law shown setbacks minimum of 14 meters. And my question is why our setbacks are so restricted when these water courses aren't that restricted? And there's no water courses in Nova Scotia with these restrictions that we have, right? So, and we're going for like not 2,000 homes, but 2,000 people for this water source, and it's not viable. And Public Works, like the Public Works statement is recent information and reporting from the Public Works Department has indicated that Spectacle Lake is unlikely to ever be suitable water source. It may be time to consider changes to removal of the protected watershed zone. This would open up approximately 110 acres currently covered by the protected watershed zone for future use and development. Like, we need housing, and I just don't understand. It seems like we're beating a dead horse here. Like, it's not viable. I don't know who's been back there lately, but the water levels have dropped dramatically. I sent Pam some pictures, you know, that could be brought up on the screen, or, you know, or you guys can view them. And
I haven't seen what they are on. We have them on.
We got them in an email.
Oh,
We received them in an email.
I don't know if you can pull them up or not.
I don't know.
Oh, you don't.
I just don't know why we put 50 to 100 million into a project that's only gonna serve 2,000 people. We need to look at different options. People are gonna, you know, in Cheshire may have to dig their wells a little deeper, or put in the cistern, or there's other options we gotta look at, because that well's not gonna serve everybody anyway. So,
I'm just seeing if we can pull up the picture just because others may not have seen them. And I just, quite frankly, I didn't know them last night.
like there's been a study in 2011 on the lake, and then the lake was 40, it required 24 to 48 more centimeters water to be viable. You know, that's not including the blue algae issues and things like that, which that's, you know, that stuff can be fixed. I'm not saying don't use the lake for water supply. I'm just saying the restrictions are ridiculous, right? There's no other lakes around here with those restrictions. You know what I mean? The Sherbrooke Lake, which I think I just seen on there today. Well, if I remember correctly, that's not the whole lake, and that is for agricultural farm. And that's not the whole lake, if I can remember correctly, right? So, and most restrictions are like a 20-foot set or a 20-meter setback. You know what I mean? It's like, I think they're ridiculous setbacks. No other lakes in Nova Scotia like that. Well, I don't know why this is so special.
Oh, here we go.
You know what I mean? Like, it's drier than I've ever seen.
Mr. Ward? Can we ask questions of the presenter?
You can ask questions of the presenter, yes.
I'd like to, after we see the pictures, I have a question.
Yeah, I wanted the public.
And these are like a week ago or so.
Yeah.
I just wanted to be able to do something with my own property, and my kids, you know, be able to do something someday too.
Yeah. Yeah, I just thought.
You can see all the, you know,
They were available
algae
to
in the water
they
now.
should be available to the public.
Do we know where they're taken from, or where in the lake these photos?
That's taken closest towards, like, facing where he's all.
Relative to your
Yes.
land?
Yeah.
I can't have too much conversation, but I do appreciate your wanting to know.
Did you take any of the other end of the lake?
No, I don't really have, I'm not going to travel over other people's properties to.
Oh, okay, I'm just asking.
No, I'm just not traveling over other people's properties to go do photo shoot, right?
No, because the other end,
The
the other end looks
yeah.
quite,
It's like, it's same as all lakes, goes down the same way all around.
I have to try to maintain some. Okay, so
That's my
that's
thoughts on the matter.
it. Okay, thank you very much.
Just ask questions.
Yeah, oh, sorry, yeah.
Thanks for your presentation, Jimmy. You heard the planner say that the present regulations allow virtually no development. And you said you would like, you would
I would
object to some restrictions.
yeah.
You don't object?
I'm not,
So would you be content with a low-density residential, as an example? No commercial, low-density residential. Would that be something that would be acceptable to you as a landowner?
I'd have to look at that more to understand a little bit better, but I mean, what do you consider low density?
Well, that's something we could discuss.
Yeah, for sure, I'm always open for discussions.
And you were before us with a request.
Yes,
Can you remind me what that was?
so it's requests for a subdivision of like 14, 15 lots.
And do you know the reason it was turned down?
Well, they wanted me to pave, what I could understand is like, it was approved if I paved the road all the way back there. Like, I don't have the money to pay the road, I'd be able more money than what I'd be in, you know what I mean?
I have to get the planner to comment on this, but the restriction I see in the protected waterfront zone says that any new lot would have to have frontage on a public street.
Yes.
I'm just wondering what the reason it was turned down, because there's no public street there.
I don't understand that part.
Okay, is there a private right-of-way going to your property?
Yes,
Is it public?
no,
But I think one of the requirements now in the zone is that the zone any lots created shall have lot frontage on a public street, which is not possible because there's no public streets there. So that's why I guess the planner said virtually no development there.
Yeah, I just don't understand why it's,
Anyway,
those
thanks.
restrictions. All right, thank you.
Thanks for your opinion.
You haven't spoken yet, have you? No, okay. And then you.
Morning. Thank you, everybody, for being here. My name is Peggy Wilson. I live on Queen Street in Chester. People are here today for different reasons. Some people are here because they cannot believe that we are here discussing rezoning a protected watershed. There is no country in the world that will give up a protected watershed at this point in time. Worldwide, water is in a declining natural resource, and we don't seem to understand the enviable position that we are in by being custodians of a watershed that has been protected so much that it is basically a unicorn. You did that. You had the foresight to put a protected watershed in place. It's pristine, undeveloped, and its potential untapped. The watershed, our watershed, has not been explored to its full potential, but here we are on the edge of allowing it to be exploited, never to be utilized for the purpose it was protected or intended to. To be clear, this action would be nothing short of negligence. It does not need to be, or likely will never be, the complete answer to our water woes, but it is something that can be thrown away today by your actions, never to be realized in any capacity. Once the protected watershed is rezoned to mixed use or general basic, it's a done deal. Some people may be here today because the protected watershed is creating a financial hardship for them if it was inherited land and it's become a tax burden. Some people are here today because they'll financially benefit from your vote today. Some people are here today because they are speculators. They bought land in a protected water zone to capitalize on your vote. Some people are here today because they will financially benefit from you voting to rezone Spectacle Lake through their business endeavors or developments. But some people are here today because they are greater good people who know that this lake can be utilized for its intended purposes. If this is the last day you serve on this council, what do you want your legacy to be? Do you want to be a council that serves people who financially benefit from your decision, or a council that serves people willing to work to find solutions? These are high stakes that we're talking about today. Property owners will be at a disadvantage if this is not done right, and the perception will be negligence. Failure to take reasonable care resulting in damage. Make no doubt about it, your actions today will set us down a road that will in fact be damaging to this community. It's almost a year to the day, October 12th, 2023, that a contractor spoke to council about a road that he wanted to put in over the property off Chester Downs. During that discussion, the main problem identified hindering the contractor from moving forward was the protected watershed. At that time, you were all very confident that within a couple of months, a new groundwater source as a viable water source for Chester would be confirmed. Here we are today, 12 months later, and we are no closer. Yet here we are discussing rezoning Spectacle Lake protected watershed status. I hope you can dig deep and remember your conversations that day and your commitment to keeping the protected watershed in place until an alternate source was identified. You were all working on best practices back then. I hope you still hold yourself to those standards today. Nothing happens without imagination. All change takes imagination. Positive change takes imagination and a buy-in from a community wanting to make the place they call home better. If you don't have the imagination to find a way forward, that's okay. Hire a firm or a consultant that their strength is imagination in this area. Imagine a village source water protection advisory committee working with the right people. We don't have to reinvent the wheel. Lunenburg does it now. The framework is there. Council has the authority to create committees. It's doable. I'm not saying it's the answer, but it could be something. Imagine a water wants equals water needs as an additional element to that committee. Cisterns filled with water from Spectacle Lake. It's doable if you have imagination. Imagine finally moving forward, mapping out steps to some sort of water security for this village. Some people are here today because of that reason, and that reason alone is why they're here. Please vote to keep the protected watershed at Spectacle Lake as is, and let the conversation start to strive for solutions. I have a petition here today that's been signed by 128 people, plus the framework for the Source Water Protection Agency that's currently in place. I'd like to put these forward as well as my comments to be part of the minute package for today. Thank you.
Thank you. Denise is next. She had
Thank you and good morning.
Morning.
My name is Denise Peterson-Rayfuse. I live at 186 King Street in Chester. I appreciate the fact that having a piece of property or properties around a restricted area is frustrating. However, we have to look at the entire picture here, and there's a couple things. I know there has been mention about the housing needs. What I have seen over the last number of issues that we've been around the table with, and I keep on mentioning the need for this council to do a housing strategy, because what's happening is that people are throwing out that, this will help with the housing, but you don't know that until you do a strategy and understand who would be going into a particular development. Is it helping with issues of the housing crisis that we have, or is it going to be a development that is out of the means of most people to be able to live in that rental unit? And that's what I've seen and I have a fear for, because it's just being done one-off, rather than you're looking at an entire strategy from all your communities, identifying what their needs are and developing a strategy with the community, rather than having all these arguments and push and pull. With regards to the communication, I would suggest that we need better communication. Just putting ads in a newspaper nowadays and even on Facebook doesn't work. It's very difficult. I said at a meeting the other day that each and every one of us each day receives 100,000 messages a day through email, radio, all that coming at us. So, and people are, with the way things are in our world, they're trying to survive. They're not thinking any more than surviving right now. And there's a lot of people that are in that position. And therefore, it's very important, as I said, to have a strategy. You need a solid foundation to make these decisions. The other part is, how did we get here? I know because of individuals having land around the watershed area, but how did this get to this point? And it says that I respect staff and their recommendations, but I have not heard one bit about research and data with regards to this. This is a huge decision, and even if it works out that the lake is not suitable for our water, it is a water area, and as mentioned, in the world, we have a water crisis. We have a housing crisis and a water crisis. What municipality would give up water? And you have to think of the future, not just the present. Your decisions have a domino effect going forward in the future. And what I see is a lot of municipalities are looking at having watershed areas protected. They're going through that process. And I could not find one case of where a municipality removed that. And so I urge you on that. And I urge you to go outside your staff. This is such a large issue that you should not be going by a staff recommendation. And because of the fact, that's one person's opinion. Where did they get it from? Where is the research? What is going, you've got to have that before you make a proper decision. The other thing is, I would like to know with the council, is there any councillor here that has declared that this may be a conflict?
Not that I'm aware of.
So no councillor has said, I have land there, so I am going to state that I have a conflict?
Not that I'm aware of.
Well, I think you should look into that also. That's very disturbing. There's a pattern here, and I'm just saying you need to look at that very seriously, very seriously. So I would urge you to, number one, pass over to the new council a request or encouragement to have a housing strategy. Number two, with this project in particular, research and data that you can present to the residents of the municipality of Chester. And number three, please look into conflicts of interest that are either, a conflict of interest is not just the person declaring it. There's also, you have to look at whether there's a perception of that. That has to come into account also. So I appreciate the time. I really hope that you would take this very seriously and realize that a lot more work needs to be done before any kind of decision like this. And when there are issues of this magnitude, I would encourage you to do a mass mailing. I mean, that is how you, in today's world, the only way you're going to reach people is if that information comes directly to their home rather than just newspaper and even social media, because not everybody is on that. So I hope you take into account these recommendations, and I thank you for your time.
Thank you. Yes, sir, you get your hand up first, yeah.
My name's David Burton. I'm here on behalf of my father, Ronald Burton, who is the only resident within the protected watershed. He has non-conforming rights. As a family, we have 22 acres on the lake, but for roughly 35,000 square feet of that acreage, all of it's within the very restrictive 150-meter lake setback. That land could be subdivided if this went ahead and sold off for, one would think, considerable profit. That's not why I'm here today. Didn't get notice of this hearing, but for a neighbor telling me a week ago, so I haven't had long to talk to family and friends about it and learn about what's going on. In reviewing some of the documents that got us here today, there seems to be a very narrow lens through which we're looking at this issue. There's not there's a report that supports the finding that it's not an economically suitable water source for the town of Chester. But that's a very, as I said, narrow lens to look at such an important issue. The legacy is 35 years this has been in place. Your predecessors felt so strongly about protecting Spectacle Lake that they bought up lot after lot after lot. From one edge of my father's property to the edge of municipal land ownership, it would go from my dad's land to almost 30 or 40% of the circumference of the lake, just between my dad's land and municipal land. And those 1,100 acres, when looked at through Google Maps and the land view, you see development all around it. Well, conspicuously, it's absent in the middle. And we have a parallel process going on right now, charting our path to growth, where every constituent in the municipality got notice. They got an apology on the website for receiving late notice, and on this motion, nobody got direct notice. The legacy of those 1,100 acres sits right in the middle of what FBM, the planners in the Chart Your Path for Growth, identified as the 3 areas for housing development and intense development, perhaps, with mixed-use housing, affordable housing going into exit 7, 8, and Stanford Lake. The watershed sits right in the middle of that, and its value now, after 30 years, 35 years of restrictive zoning, should be assessed in that context. Couldn't a future involve those 3 new communities at 7, 8, and Stanford Lake being connected through a pathway of community corridors with this watershed? Perhaps the future of the watershed is one where the municipality and its constituents have much greater access to Spectacle Lake. It is a lake that's very close to the rails to trails, very close to Graves Island. Could those community resources be interconnected somehow? Has that been investigated? I've heard people talk about the low levels of the lake this year. Well, last year, it was the opposite. The lake had never been so high. It was, at its highest point last year, was probably 100 feet from where it sat before the rains of last week. I've never known there to be blue-green algae there. I've never seen a report in council's, council does test lakes and then puts it on their websites, those lakes that have had these blooms of blue-green algae. I've never seen Spectacle Lake listed as one afflicted with that issue, nor on the provincial website where they also keep that data.
Yeah, we use their data too.
My point is that I'm not aware of one instance of that happening at Spectacle Lake. I see a future because of this motion, because of the thinking that this motion has caused me to and our family to have over the last few days, because that's all we've had, where the childhood I had where there was a raft in the middle of Spectacle Lake heaving with children using the lake, that doesn't exist anymore. No one uses the lake because there's no public access to the lake. And I have people who've moved in on Duncan Road from out of province and intend to live there forever because they've fallen in love with Chester. They take their kayaks to the sea. They have no way to use Spectacle Lake because they get permission from one person and then someone else from that person's family shouts at them when they try to use the lake. My point is that this is a community resource that should be properly assessed, and there's a parallel process going on right now that is to deal with affordable housing, putting in a bunch of new units, and that this issue is perhaps better viewed in as part of that process, where they're looking at things like rezoning. That was part of the FBM mandate that they presented in their YouTube video, that they would look at the appropriate places to put in these new houses, where the infrastructure could be developed to support those new houses. And perhaps this watershed, this 1,100 acres, could be brought in as part of a planner's mandate to create a viable vision for the future, and a viable vision for the future that enriches all landowners. If a innovative, collaborative plan were put forward, it could be one where the constituents of Chester have greater access to the lake as a resource, where the water is protected, where lake setbacks are restrictive perhaps, or where landowners are able to develop maybe not one dwelling unit per lot as is the current law. Maybe the ability to subdivide is changed. The current, now dated 35-year-old rules are perhaps inappropriate. And I just wonder if there is a future where the water can be protected, the constituents of all of Chester could have greater access to the lake, and yet it be done in a manner that the landowners would support that vision, because with collaborative, innovative thinking and the involvement of professionals and a sound, well-researched basis on which to make decisions, a better future could be envisaged and then realized, where everyone, including the environment, is winner. My family has already engaged, prior to knowing anything about this, with Ducks Unlimited about getting conservation easements on our land. So I'm happy to put my hand up as a willing collaborator with council and as a landowner in the area to work towards a future that is perhaps more open and accessible while respecting the sanctity and legacy that has been created by your predecessors. And I think the land that the municipality owns on the lake is relevant to the decisions that are made, because it's not a lake where you don't have a huge swath of land that is in your direct control. Could a Jake's Landing of Kedgie exist on Spectacle Lake? Could there be a rowing club? There could be any number of things that would make Chester a greater resource than it already is, but I think the starting point is understanding the resource that's there and how best to move forward with that resource. And in my family, you have a group that's willing to work with you if that future is innovative, collaborative, and bright.
Thank you very much.
Good morning. I'd like to just start by saying I can't speak in front of the public at all, so bear with me while I...
You're just gonna give us your name and city address.
Just gonna read from what I had wrote down. My name is Jason Morash. I currently live at 27 Piglet Road. I've lived in the East Chester area almost all of my entire life. I raised 2 children there. Would like to continue to live there on our property on Spectacle Lake. The problem with that is the restrictions placed on our property because of the watershed zoning makes this near impossible. The size of this zone is unbelievable. It extends all the way out behind South Shore Sand and Gravel's pit on Windsor Road. It consists of 1,100 acres in total and holds hostage approximately 50 landowners. I don't believe there's any more of a water issue in the village than there is in half the other communities in the municipality. A search around the province's online well log database will prove my point. Village well depths on that website are between the 200 and 300 foot mark with yields of 3 to 20 gallons per minute. These numbers are consistent with or better than nearby communities in the area. Looking back at a recent planning committee meeting I attended, the senior planning officer said new information and data proved the lake is drying up year after year, caused by multiple factors, but the biggest problem being climate change. This is the same reason why surface water is not a viable source to depend on anymore. Therefore, he said Spectacle Lake would never be used by the municipality. I agree. I walked into the Southeast Coal Outlet last weekend, and it is definitely not the lake I grew up dirt biking back to go for a swim. The lake is down at least 3 feet and is so dry the outlet stream doesn't exist anymore. Even if the municipality decided years from now they wanted to try getting water out of Spectacle Lake, what would stop them from doing so? The municipality still owns around 30 acres of land on the lake with loads of lake frontage to do whatever they want. Some of Bridgewater's water supply lakes have homes around them. There's restrictions on the lakes prohibiting bathing, swimming, and motorized vessels. There will still be restrictions on Spectacle Lake as well, including the 60-foot barrier surrounding the lake. Changing the watershed zoning will not take away Spectacle Lake's protection. It will just remove some of the insane restrictions that make it impossible for landowners to do anything with their properties. Our daughters are now young adults out on their own, living in a small house together, renting with a couple of their friends because that's all they can afford. They are hard workers, sometimes holding multiple jobs to make ends meet. They've spoken to us multiple times of their fears of never being able to own homes. and I worry without our help, their fears will most likely become reality. We have an affordable housing crisis in the municipality of Chester, the same as the rest of the country. Do we have water problems? Everybody does. I don't think it's a crisis. That's my opinion. That's why I asked council today to please vote to rezone the watershed so families like my own can afford to stay and live in our community for future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I know that wasn't easy for you.
No, it wasn't.
There's a handout in the very back.
Hello. Good morning, Warden Weber and council members. My name is Jamie Mater. My civic address is 124 Old Trunk 3, and I'm sorry, we talk fast, this is nervous. My civic address is 124 Old Trunk 3. But for anyone who knows me best, which is a lot of people behind me right now, they know that that's where my home, or that's where my house is, a place to rest my head, but my home is in the woods that my father, Wayne Bond, back there, owns around Spectacle Lake. I've had the absolute privilege for 44 years on this planet to have a father that has let me run free through his woods. As a small child on top of his mountain, I dreamed of having a house perched on top of that mountain, never realizing that perhaps a house on top of a rock may not have been a viable option, when in actuality, the dream of ever building a home, cottage, or a camp was a possibility because of the watershed restrictions.
Take your time.
Those things like the restrictions never stopped my desire to explore those woods with my dad, or fish in the lake, or later in life teach my children how to ride their bikes, or teach them to fish and skate on that lake in the winter. Always wishing that my dad would let us build a tiny cabin to stay in. However, now realizing it wasn't up to my dad, however, it was up to a group of folks that try their best to make the right decisions for the municipality of Chester. The reason I'm sharing this bit of my life is to show not only the council members, but the other residents of Chester, that behind these landowners are humans with families that have worked hard to obtain the lands throughout the years and would like the opportunity to build a home or a cottage or insert whatever dream they might have. I'm not educated on the grids and the graphs or reports that most of the folks are in this room. However, I was present at the information session where residents were informed that Spectacle Lake is not a viable option for the water source for the municipality of Chester. I did not need to read any reports, because as someone who spends as much time as I do at the lake, I can assure you that at any given time, it is not a lake, but a glorified mud puddle at best. As of this moment, the lake itself is down at least 3 feet. In my lifetime, I have watched the entire cove dry up. So again, as someone who is not as educated on the situation, I could still use my common sense that perhaps taking water from the lake that all but evaporates in the summer and fall doesn't seem like such a great idea. Again, I'm not an expert, but we've heard from them. Spectacle Lake is not a viable option. So thank you for your time. I hope that the council recognizes that the folks that own land around the lake have been more than patient, and rezoning of the land will happen so folks can get on with living, and council can spend the much needed time in finding alternate sources for the water for the municipality.
Thank you very much. Next,
Is there anyone else?
while I haven't seen, there will be.
Morning, council. My name is Shannon Black. My civic address is 65 Dew Street. So just a quick timeline. Since the 1960s, Spectacle Lake was identified as a potential water source, and the protection was formalized in 1992. So that's the 35 plus years Mr. Burton is referring to.
Put your microphone
Closer. So since that time, council started, or the municipality started buying up pieces of land around the lake, and now owns 9 parcels in total. the most recent of which was purchased in January 2023. So as recently as January 2023, the municipality was focused on protecting the watershed zone. And then before that, in June 2022, we've seen a memo stating that service of a residential population of 2,000 appears to be reasonable from Spectacle Lake at that time, June 2022. Okay, and then at that time also, we were looking at Middle River because that looked to be a promising spot for a well field. And given the optimism about Middle River at that time, Spectacle Lake was considered that it could have value as a backup water supply. We know that Middle River is not viable. There were also test wells suggested around Marriott's Cove, and that relates to the surficial aquifer. Now, that diagram was in the materials from last week, and when CBCL recommended test well sites, they said, look at Middle River, it's promising, it's a location of interest, and and also that actually from 2017, there is a figure, it's figure 4.1, and it recommends test well sites. And there are some around Marriott's Cove as well. So far, no good news from Marriott's Cove, but instead a focus on Robinson's Corner. Okay, that is what has come up in 2024, is this focus on, and it may have come up in 2023. June 13th, there was a report from Mr. Wynot saying Middle River very low. There's a 1982 well log from Robinson's Corner, and there are anecdotal accounts of 2 good wells on Haddon Hill. Okay, so on the one hand, we have some optimism, but nothing positive, no real alternate source relating to a well field. And on the other hand, we have the 2011 hydrological assessment of Spectacle Lake. Now, we've heard today from people who spend a lot more time in that area than any of us do, and they've raised some legitimate concerns and questions. So we know the lake is low now, 3 feet below its normal level, they say. But we know that last year it was however many feet above its normal level. So we've got a fluctuating resource, which makes sense. We should be looking at more research around it. Also understanding how it's functioning relative to how it was working when it was assessed in 2011. Because I believe there is some aspect to containing the water and preventing outflow. Anyway, that's what we've got. On the one hand, we've got nothing concrete as an alternate source, and on the other hand, we have a potentially viable source to supply some percentage of the population with drinking water. In terms of the new research that was presented at the public information meeting that a number of people were at, it's an email from Matthew Blair. It's dated May 17th, 2024. It's less than 200 words, and it is filled with inaccuracies, misstatements, unsubstantiated extrapolation. It is not a strong document. It's not even in paragraphs. Okay, so that is the basis for staff's recommendation to remove the protection. It's not a piece of research. In terms of the protection and in terms of the interests of the people who are here today, we've got, again, competing interests. Yes. On the one hand, we have property owners, and we've heard from them today, some of them, and there are others, I'm sure, who share their interests. We've also heard from residents in the village of Chester, and we've heard from one long-standing property owner or son of a long-standing property owner who has said in his written materials that property, when it came into his family's possession, was a ravaged former quarry and has been rehabilitated over 45 years. Now, we heard from Jimmy Rayfuse today. He bought his property, 93 acres, he bought his parcel in November of 1996. Formal protection had been in place since 1992. He knew what he was buying when he bought it. We heard from Jason Morash. He bought his property in June. He knew what he was buying when he
You
bought
gotta
it.
go back in time, these people inherit these properties from.
I don't want you referring to others.
So if you
Just
die and pass me on
say
a
what-
property that's been in my property and my family for years, you know, it's not fair to say my brother inherited his property 6 months ago because his dad died, but my grandfather owed it prior to that 50 years. So to say they inherited today is completely wrong.
It actually is my opportunity to speak.
It's your opportunity to speak, but please leave out the others.
I think that,
Yeah, I didn't bring up your name in my speech, I wanted to, but I
No,
didn't.
just be respectful to the others, that's all.
And respectfully, don't point at her like that. That's disrespectful.
Okay,
I think
I'm
that the
sorry.
point I can make then in general terms is that people have acquired or added to their land holdings often since the protection was in place. And they knew when they, perhaps if it's been in a family for a long time, it had very little value then, okay? If it came to them for, you know, without having to pay money for it, that is relevant. If they bought it and acquired more land, knowing exactly what the protections were in place at the time, that is relevant. So these are the competing interests. We have on one side the water security concerns of the village, the interests of an entire municipality in an 1,100 square kilometer natural resource. And on the other hand, we have the financial interests of several property owners. So I'm not sure about the recent submission, the most recent speaker's submissions about not being able to build a home on a piece of land. My understanding was that you could build a piece of land. I do know that the holdings of that family are immense, enormous, many, 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 many acres. So I'm surprised to hear that it's not possible to build a home there.
How much land do you need to build a home?
I don't have the bylaw. It's not.
So
I don't know.
Does anybody have?
Anyway, are you done speaking or?
no, I'm actually not.
Okay.
So, in making a decision like this, I'm going to ask the council to let the statement of provincial interest be your guide. It was drafted to assist decision-making by municipal councils in decisions exactly like this one. The introductory paragraph says, Nova Scotia's land and water resources are fundamental to our physical, social, and economic well-being, but they are finite resources, and using them in one way can mean the exclusion of other uses forever. Therefore, it is important that decisions about Nova Scotia's land and water be made carefully. Ill-advised land use can have serious consequences for the physical, economic, social well-being, and social well-being of all Nova Scotians. So this statement gives you the freedom and the authority to choose the environmental path, to protect the natural resource, and to protect the municipal water supply watershed. That's what we're talking about today. Spectacle Lake is a municipal water supply watershed. And the statement of interest should be your guide. There's a presumption that where watershed exists, protection is the preferred path, and any decision to remove protection has to be supported by convincing evidence that it's warranted, I would submit, okay? There are provisions within that statement of interest that can be pointed to under section 2, submission B, balancing the expansion of existing uses against the risks posed to drinking water quality, and C, limiting the number of lots. Too many lots may result in development which cumulatively affects drinking water quality. The minimum size of lots and density of development should be balanced against the risks posed to the quality of drinking water, okay? The province wants you to be able to use this and rely on it and use it as your guide. In terms of the vote today, it says on the agenda whether to vote or to defer. And this is just, I'm speaking for myself here, but this is council's doing, as you pointed out, Mr. Warden. We are here with very short notice, in a panic to protect the only identified viable potable water source that we know of. And when I say viable, for me, viable doesn't mean that it has to serve 2,400 people. Okay, it has to meet the needs of whoever it is who needs drinking water at the time. I don't think that a number is a determination of viability. And this community has been forced to come here and present repeatedly and put information in front of the council so we can make an educated decision today. And I don't think that it is appropriate for this council not to take responsibility for a final vote on this matter today. To defer it and throw it into the laps of a new council is not fair to them, and it's not fair to the community. It may be that easing restrictions in the protected watershed zone makes sense. It may be, but that can happen in a different forum with a dedicated research and an arm's length expert supporting staff and supporting council, the new council that makes that decision. I think everybody here is actually open to a conversation. This does not have to be a fight between the different interests. I think that sharing information will go a long way to helping us as a community strike on an agreement. Even the plan that Mr. Burton described, which is extremely heartening to think about. I mean, I would love to be able to go up there and see what it's like. I would love access.
They'll be very disappointed.
Okay, so just a couple of housekeeping matters. Because of that, I would like today's vote to be a recorded vote. I would like to know which councillors vote for and which vote against. I'd like that recorded in the minutes because this council's responsibility and liability will rest with this council going forward. I would also like to say that to correct earlier comments about conflict of interest, nobody here has said that a councillor owns lands in the protected watershed zone. That has not been said. What has been said, and what forms part of the record for the meeting later, is evidence that a councillor owns 2 parcels of land that adjoin to Mr. Rayfuse's land. That is what has been said so far. However, what we know is that when Mr. Rayfuse brought his application in October of 2023, Mr. Vino recused himself. He has not shared the general nature of that conflict. He should not be participating in discussions or voting on this issue.
Yes, and I have already told you that I will be asking for clarification on what conflict relates to.
Well, I think, Mr. Warden, what you should be asking for is an investigation. And you have the power, this council has the power to do that under the Municipal Conflict of Interest
Well, I
Act.
know that in the next meeting you're going to make a presentation and I will.
I will. And if Mr. Vino refuses to recuse himself and he insists on participating in the discussion and in the voting, well, in the discussion, I would advise councillors that they should not be swayed by his presentations, and I'm optimistic that this council will do the right thing today. And I want to thank you very much for your time and for listening.
Thank you.
It's a right away.
My name's Ira Stevens. I live at 86 Go Lake Road. I have a question. Why wasn't the Zanson Lake ever explored as a watershed? Is it because we built a dump at the top of our water chain in Cosser Meadow that feeds down through all this, so we wouldn't go to the Zans Lake that's like 10 times the size of Spectacle Lake? I fished it with my fish finder. It's 100 some feet deep. It's a huge lake. It runs right along the number 14, which would be, to me, way less people. There's only one landowner who owns around the whole lake. They haven't cut the forest down in about a couple hundred years. It's still nice forest. That would make more sense than the watershed. The 103 is gonna have infill. We built a golf course because we're rich and we dump chemicals on that ground which feed your watershed area. It would make more sense to abandon this little area and go out to Windsor Road where you have an actual lake that would feed the place. money's not an issue from what I gather with this council, because you got our taxes through the roof, through wasting money on Gold River School and all the other parcels of land you've overpaid for. It's about soon time you guys start managing your money like the working people. Have a good day.
Yes, sir.
My name is Dennis Connolly, and I live at 93 Prince Street. I'd like to start by saying I understand the concerns of the people who own land in and around the Spectacle Lake. And if I own land there, I'd want to be free to be able to do what I wanted to do. The bottom line is that Spectacle Lake is the only, up to this point, identical water source for the village of Chester. Until the municipality is able to identify other water sources for the village of Chester, I think it's premature to make any decision at this time in respect of the watershed area. I truly believe it is up to the municipality to determine or to find alternative sources to the Spectacle Lake, and any action taken to once and for all end the use of Spectacle Lake as a water source is totally, in my opinion, irresponsible of this council. I don't know that I have a great deal more to offer other than to say to you that that as a resident of the village of Chester, while I support a central water system, I'm one of the fortunate people in Chester that doesn't require an alternate water source. But the village itself does require that water source, whether it's for fire protection or whatever. That having been said, I'm very disappointed, bewildered actually, that staff can recommend this. I attended a meeting not so long ago when staff was recommending increasing the density, even though there's a water situation. I can't understand how planners can arrive at that kind of decisions. In any event, I just wanted to put my 2 cents worth in, saying that I understand the wishes of the people who own land in that water protected area. I want the very same thing that they want if I owned it. Nonetheless, I'll just end by saying that I think it's very premature for this council at this time to make any decision in respect of the watershed lands. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Yeah, in the back there.
My name is Wayne Boland. I got a little bit of land background I'd like to talk about. But it seems to be okay for this family here. I think one time they were going to put me in jail to have bought the road because Something the village said decided to, we're gonna use my road, blah, blah, blah. I said, well, I did move the rocks, last road. Today I would, it had to jail. Then when I was they decided to buy some land back there. So when that spring year, they back toward the road all, toward the terrible bed. So that caused a conflict. I told them, don't use my land anymore at all. First thing to do is start to walk back. I told the man, I said, didn't I tell you not to use my land anymore? He decided to go up the road. Good for his health. Good move. So, and I never stopped not using my land whatsoever. Guess what? I guess I get maybe a couple of $1,000 a year back for sitting on the land. That'd be probably commercial lot, what we call that, Terry? All the commercial stuff to get back there. I kind of went off the land where you got nothing else to do to make a living. I all fell off it. The whole compost back there to make topsoil. And I said, I never stopped at the land, and I'm not against expropriate land for water if it's gotta be. But the lake is completely undry now as far as I'm concerned. The rock comes down across my land, you walk across the bare feet, and you have to take a bucket of water, wash them off, because I have to get dirt off them. And I don't understand why all these people complain in Chester, they got no water. I don't understand when you bought a place in Chester, you made sure you had a road, clear title to your land, and no water. Now that's not being very smart in my opinion, but maybe I'm stupid, I don't know. But saying, I'll let other people use my land, they don't steal that from me, and let's continue that to today. The day that they say they can't do on the land when they want to, then there'll be a conflict between them all. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone who hasn't already spoken who wishes to speak?
How you doing, Dave?
Pretty good.
This won't take a real long time, but we'll sit down.
Yeah, your name and city.
My name's Wade Stevens.
Yeah.
I grew up in 104 Gull Lake Road. I'll make it a little bit emotional here, but that's all right. My father was Mike Stevens. My grandfather was Ira Stevens. My grandfather had polio when he bought that piece of land that my father left to me. And all I'm going to say is I've got 5 kids to take care of. Do the math. 5 kids. Where are they buying a home? How much are they paying? Who's going to pay the bill? Like Jason said, they all going to live together? Everybody's girlfriend can beat everybody's boyfriend. Oh, but a happy bunch. No, let's be realistic. Like Wayne said, what did he use his land for? Maybe cut a few trees, maybe walk on and enjoy some time with his family. Maybe to take every one of these people back here that's all good citizens. Come on back, let's have dinner, let's have a good time. I had family back there that's dead and gone now. James Stevens, he had a cabin there. We went there every Sunday. We enjoyed time. Glad to do what you want on that land. Now, once again, there's some people with what you got promoted here that you want to do, it's going to lose hard. Some people might lose a lot. There's a lady over here that voiced her opinion, what she had to say about the community and the water levels and what's going on. But when it comes down to it, if you bought a house on a dirt road, you might have dust. If you buy a place that doesn't have a very good well, that was a bad decision, like Wayne said. Maybe spend a little money and drill the well. Maybe sell it and move somewhere better. But we're all here in the community, and we all have to make a decision to get water there. I agree with that. But my acknowledgement of all this was very short and very, my friend here, Jimmy Rinkies, he's who told me. He said, hey, Wade, just come to a meeting. You might not got much notice about that, but, there's a lot going on and a lot to be said. And I might be as educated as half you people here. Yeah, I can agree with that. But what I do know, so it comes down to people and honesty, trying to be decent human beings, and trying to bring matters forward that affects everybody, they should have some acknowledgement. So have a letter sent to them in the mail. We still have that, right?
Yeah.
Hey, Mr. Stevens, you've got 14 half acres in there. Your old man passed away 6 months ago. But you know what he said to me? Don't give that land up, Wade. Don't sell that land. Raise your kids there. Have a life. Have an opportunity. And I think a lot of people in here, whether you're against or for, would agree with that. That's part of life. And I'm a little disgusted when I look around at the people in here right now with the attitudes of what your guys' plan is or what you're trying to do. Yeah, there's lots of good in that. There's an awful lot of bad. And then you put a unit on Stanford Lake that was approved. How many units is down there? What did they do? They drilled a well. They're going to have their own water source to supply that. But you don't get a rob from everybody else to try to supply another area. I'm just a little disappointed, right, in our community. I don't come here often. You know when I come here? To pay my taxes. So when I show up, like most people probably, spend a little money, try to have a piece of land, try to get ahead. If my father was here today, he would be disgusted. And the attitudes he's taken here from people I don't even really honestly know. It makes me kind of weak. And I stand behind everybody, except for one lady, that's come here today to speak. And we would probably fill this room with probably 5 more times with people's here, if they knew about it, if they honestly knew about it. If someone said, hey, there's a little something going on down there about people that own some land, maybe we should get together and talk about it and discuss the problems that's coming forth, what people might want to try to do in their life, what they might not want to do. Not everybody's here to try to get rich. A lot of people are just trying to get by in this crazy world. And I'll be pretty damn depressed if I go home and I gotta tell Lydia at 14, my son at 19, my other son at 13, and my little girl, she's just starting to learn what all about getting around in the world, man. Had her down there, she loves that piece of land. Pretty sad to say to her, hey, Maeve, you're not gonna be able to do nothing other than just throw a fishing rod. Oh, you can't even throw a fishing rod in there. You can't even go in there and swim. I swam that lake all my life, man, growing up. It's just disappointing that you guys ain't looking at the big picture, the simple picture. That's all I got to say here today.
Thank you very much. Okay.
Must be somebody else. Let's see.
Yes, oh yes, yeah, I think it should be him. Yeah.
Good morning. My name is Kristen Dabrowski and I live on Central Street. Today I'm asking council to vote against the request for removing watershed protections from Spectacle Lake. And I'm asking you instead to vote in favor of our municipality's residents and preservation of our planet's most precious resource, water. As both a business owner and a resident of this community, I can say with confidence that I consider it to be one of my greatest privileges to live and contribute to this community. Here we have kind and committed citizens, ones who look out for each other and engage candidly with their municipality and council on the things that matter. As you all know, your residents have been working tirelessly over the past few years to work with the municipality and council to adapt the village plan to one that is proactive and progressive in nature. We have asked consistently not for the prevention of density and development, but for a path forward that is reflective of the current realities of the environment in which our community will grow. This is why it brought great concern to our community that within weeks of voting against a village plan that required revision because of a lack of research, foresight, and solutions for environmental concerns in the community, council has been asked to vote to remove environmental protections from our municipality's current and only watershed protected zone. Residents have been asking for water solutions for many years, and in particular since the 2019 vote on water. To date, the municipality has not been able to provide a sustainable solution to Chester's water shortage. In fact, when you walk in the doors to council chambers, you see signs for the municipality's water distribution program, a program where residents are given coupons to collect water, because their well water has run dry. As our village grows, we cannot continue to expect our citizens to rely on jugs of bottled water to meet their water needs. We need alternate solutions. I reviewed the letters submitted from residents, which were uploaded to the municipal planning record at 7:31 p.m. last night, and I trust that you did too. For those in the room who did not have the benefit of reviewing those letters, I will note that all of the resident letters submitted, except for one, stated clearly that they were asking council to oppose the request for removals of the watershed protection zone around Spectacle Lake at this time. To offer you a sampling of the statements made by the residents, these letters stated, "The idea of abandoning any potential source of water in our area is folly. Please choose carefully." Another said, "Anyone who buys into the restrictions in place does so willingly and with their eyes open. The notion that no development or heavy use is ongoing legally at present is fake news. Development is already possible in the PW. Every lot owner can build a home on their lot, albeit 150 meters back from the lake." Another said, "Has anyone at the municipality thought to act on policy B14? It says council will notify and engage. Has this been done? And if not, why?" Another said, "I was absolutely shocked to hear this news and cannot fathom why the council would even consider such a draconian decision to remove a protected watershed." I could continue, but in the interest of time, I will assume all of council did have opportunity to review all of the letters submitted and were able to observe for themselves that the sentiment of those letters were clear. Chester is not comfortable with the removal of the watershed protections right now. In making your decision today, I also ask council to reflect on the language of the Municipal Government Act, the piece of legislation which governs the roles and responsibilities of municipal government and their council. In the preamble of the Act, it does indicate that municipalities are a responsible order of government accountable to the people. Municipalities are enacted and designed not just to make orders, but to make responsible ones, and to always be accountable to their people, the residents. I also note that the Municipal Government Act contains several provincial statements of interest. These statements have been issued by the provincial government with the intention of guiding the municipality on the use of land and water. In the introduction of the provincial interest statement, it indicates that Nova Scotia's land and water resources are fundamental to our physical, social, and economic well-being. It indicates they are finite resources, and using them in one way can mean the exclusion of that use for other uses forever. Therefore, it is important that decisions about Nova Scotia's land and water be made carefully. Ill-advised land use can have serious consequences for the physical, economic, and social well-being of all Nova Scotians. These statements of provincial interest recognize the importance of land and water resources and also address issues related to future growth of the community. They are intended to serve as guiding principles to help provincial government departments, municipalities, and individuals in making decisions regarding land use. They are supportive of principles of sustainable development. Development undertaken by municipalities should be reasonably consistent with these statements. The statement specific on drinking water in the provincial interest statement on drinking water indicates that inappropriate development in municipal water supply watersheds may threaten the quality of drinking water. It also acknowledges that sometimes it is impractical to continue with long-term protection of a certain supply, but then confirms that municipalities in this situation should be considering locating an alternate source. We have not been provided with clear data that there is absolutely no possible use of Spectacle Lake as a municipal drinking water supply that is practical, nor have we been provided with a viable drinking water supply alternative. For this reason, now is not the time to remove the watershed protection zone. Council needs to find solutions for all those in the room, but for now, removing the watershed protection without adequate research is not the appropriate solution. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Is there anyone else who hasn't spoken? Yes, okay. Oh, wait a second, there, okay.
Barry Redmond, live on Highway number 3, Chester. Contrary to Councilor Vino's comments last week at the meeting of the whole, the watersheds in Lunenburg, Bridgewater, Mahone Bay. He said they had no restrictions, none, he said. Well, that's simply not true. They do have restrictions. They have committees that look after the welfare of the lake, of those lakes. That being said, they have found a way that there is development there, okay? But they are still protected watershed areas. There's no reason why we can't accommodate both sets of people here. We gotta use some common sense, and I hope that maybe you'll look more into how they do it, and maybe we can come up with a common solution that can help everybody. You know, a lot of that land back there has been handed down through generations. It's not the situation where a person came in and bought the land and knew the restrictions and that sort of thing. So we have to take all of this into consideration. But at this point in time, until we find some other viable water solutions, we can't just totally throw it away. Let's look into a situation where we can accommodate both. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, Jonathan Leggett, King Street. I don't have anything prepared. I'm just listening to the room, and the thing that I hear from most people is that they're concerned about their families. They're concerned about what are their kids going to do for housing. So I wonder why that from taking restriction that's like not allowing anything, apparently, to allowing anything. Why is it so extreme? Why is there such a flip? Why is it we're on this side, you can't do anything, over to here where you can do anything you want? I don't see there being a problem with having housing as long as there's obviously restrictions about how close there is to them. It's also, there's a difference between your family building. I think in Chester, in the village itself, they used to call it sections. And it would be, if you had like one long property, then your child would get sectioned off a section and they would build a house there. I don't understand why a familial thing in a family, why there isn't allowed to be some sort of an allowance for that. You know, if there's a pocket of houses that belong to a family, I think that's a great thing. I think, you know, a family learns to respect their land and learns to appreciate what they have. And I think people that live in a communal situation like that often respect the land more. So I don't understand why it's such an extreme, why it has to go from nothing to anything. I think you really need to consider, you know, a lakeside or a version of a lakeside, but maybe engage the community that live there and just find out what they want. You know, it's the people that own the land there. What do they want? Do they want this thing for their children? Do they want to bulldoze it and put a shopping mall there? Like, what is it that's going to be allowed to happen there? And I think most of the people in this room are concerned about their families and where they're going to live. That's what I'm hearing. And I also, you know, when somebody comes up and says, oh, the housing, blah, 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 if anybody's read the municipal housing report, we can only produce, I'm going by this from memory, so I may be wrong, but I think it's 40 or 45 units per year. So in Chester itself, that's all that we can produce, not Chester Village, the municipality. We're at a shortage of, I forget how many hundred at this point of housing, none of it being affordable. So the 45 houses that we are capable of building in this municipality right now per year, none of them have been affordable, not one. So when a developer comes in and says that they're going to help the housing situation, I don't believe them. I do believe a person who owns a piece of land and wants to build a house for their family, I believe them. I don't believe the developer. So that's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. Now, the guy up there had his hand up first, I think, or at least I didn't see yours. Yeah.
Good morning.
Morning.
Morning's dragging on. I'm sure everybody wants to get going, so I'll be
Well,
brief.
we have a whole other pencil.
Yeah, I know.
That's all right.
I know you do.
This is
Dave
important.
Dabrowski, 60 King Street. I spoke at council last week. I won't go through everything that I said, but the genesis of it was really that there are no silver bullets. And in talking about silver bullets, Spectacle Lake was one of the possible solutions that needed to be explored. Part of my message really was, though, that there's work to be done. You know, I was told about the watershed areas in Lunenburg and Mahone Bay. Subsequently, I found out that there's an advisory committee that's dedicated to make sure that those watersheds are protected. We need to protect this one. I talked about desalination. I subsequently had learned about Barrington Passage and the work they're doing there with the desalination plant. Possible solution, very creative, right? Tidal water to cut down on electricity, managing the brine appropriately. The point really is today is not the day to release this watershed. I asked why last week. Why is the timing now? Why the sense of urgency? We can speculate, there's many reasons. We all know that. But what I do know is the time is not now to release. We've heard of compromise. We've heard of people willing to work together. You've got an engaged community here. Let's work together and find a solution, but that takes time. Thank you.
That's right. Over there. Yeah.
I'll be very brief. Sarah Philby, Pleasant Street in Chester. And I'm really thrilled actually to start hearing the compromise and the willingness to work together, because all of the interests are important. And I think all of us do recognize that. And I just wanted to make the point, one of the speakers, and I think it was Payzant Blake, the Kaiser Meadows. Bazant. Thank you. Bazanson. Thanks. And I just make the point, if there's I don't know if that's suitable for a watershed. I also don't know if it is irretrievably lost, because we have a dump on it, I suspect. But if there ever is an example of options being foreclosed because of a past development, such as placement of Kaiser Meadows on it, that's a best example, and you can't come back from that. So it is an important decision you make this morning. Please help all of us together build a municipality that we can all be proud of. All of us, our families, can prosper, have water, have land, have the use of land. But let's find a better way of going about it than this extreme from one to the other decision. Thanks.
Thank you. Anyone else who hasn't spoken, who wishes to speak? If not, that ends the public participation section of today's meeting. And I don't speak for council, but I speak for myself. And I think that from what I've heard today, that there is a middle ground, and that's, I think, the direction that we should go. So I don't really believe that, I think that at this moment, and it's only myself, that we should not vote to lift the restrictions, but that we should find a compromise where the land can be used by those who own it in a way that does not have a negative impact on the water quality. And I think that that's entirely possible, but I don't have the absolute facts and land use policy that in front of me that would accommodate that. So I would, in my view, I would like to defer the decision until we come up with that plan, working with both the property owners and the public on just what that would be. And I think that staff can bring back something that we for a starting place for us all to work from, and just take it from there. And that's where I am, and I don't know where everybody else is. That's just where I am. Derek has his hand up from.
Thanks, Mr. Warden, and I want to thank everybody that made a presentation today. Barrett, some people got up there and said they're not used to speaking, not professional speakers, I'm gonna tell you, you're professional speakers. You did a hell of a job, and I thank you for that. Wayne, and Jamie.
Jason.
Jason.
Ira, yeah, all they. We needed to hear from you today. We really needed it. Some others in the community were naysayers about anything we do, needed to hear you today. And we appreciate you coming. And excuse my voice, it's part of my Parkinson's that I'm struggling with. And if you'll forgive me for that, I have to stress that I'll speak as loud as I can. I studied this last night and I spent a lot of hours going over this. These are the notes I made last night. I didn't know if I'd use them today. I was hoping I would use them today. I said, where is the compromise? You know, when Garth made the comment earlier today that virtually no development can happen there, I mean, that's draconian. It's absurd. We are basically expropriating without compensation, and that's not acceptable. We have to give the people that own it the right to use it. And if we do nothing else, and my fear, we get on a committee and we're going to go back to where we were. We can't go back to where we were. We have to open this up for the people that own that property, own it for generations, and want to use it. And if we don't do that, we're making a huge mistake. But I don't agree that we remove the protected watershed zone. I think we need a watershed zone protected. But we need to allow the people there to have some use of it. And that's what's missing. And if we can make that happen, then I'm prepared to support those new. And we gotta get rid of this crap about conflict. We know how conflict works around here. We don't need lectures on that. We get lectured 3 or 4 times a year on how conflicts work. And I think that's a distraction. It's a comment that serves no purpose. I think we have to get away from that.
Thank you. And Tina, I think I can't remember who did the hand up first.
I'm just going to start with a question, and thank you very much. I'm going to start with a question, and then digest and listen to others, and I have some statements actually after. So question for clarification, does removing the protected watershed zone take away from Spectacle Lake as a potential water source?
No, we could redesignate the yes.
So I just, there's 3 things at play. The protected watershed zone, which is in our land use bylaw, which is what we're talking about removing today.
Correct.
The zone could have been called anything. It's a zone in the bylaw the same as any other zone in the bylaw. Council gets to make up the names for those zones. So that zone could have easily been called the Spectacle Lake zone. It could have been called the environmental zone. It could have been called anything. We happen to call it a protected watershed zone, so that might be some of what people are confused with or concerned about, is because it does have that label on it as a zone, as a municipal land use zone. Nothing right now protects that at the same way, with the same designation as a protected watershed source or municipal water supply watershed area as what happens at the provincial level through NSE. So Mahone Bay, and Garth has a report on some of the land use portion of it, but Mahone Bay and Hebbs Lake and Dares Lake in Lunenburg, they do have a plan for those watersheds through the Nova Scotia Department of Environment, and a designation that's a provincial designation. So their watershed designation is a provincial designation. Spectacle Lake does not have that provincial designation. So that provincial designation lets them do some land use controls, like you said, the setbacks and stuff like that we've heard about today. It also lets them regulate activities on the lake, like swimming, and so those regulations and those plans are done by a committee, but that's a provincial process that we don't have in place. We don't have that protection on this lake. We have a municipal zone, and we've heard about the the provincial statement of interest. The provincial statement of interest, there is one on drinking water, which is we've heard several times through this process referred to. The definition of a municipal water supply watershed. So there's different definitions of what a municipal water supply watershed is. The definition in that provincial statement of interest is an area of surface water or recharge area serving as a municipal water system. So it ties it to where there's a current municipal water system in place. So the statement of interest, in my understanding, and Sam, you could comment more, is that that's intended to protect current water systems. There is in the guide that's provided by the province on protecting municipal water source and creating those water source protection plans. There is a statement in there, and it's on page 10 of the plan, and I can circulate that document to council if you would like. But in that document, there is a statement that the province the minister may consider applying a designation, a provincial designation for potential water sources. We have not requested that in the past, and I don't know what requirements they would have since, you know, in terms of ensuring that we're going to, what are our plans to use that as a water source before they would consider that, but we can request that.
Okay, so thank you for the answer. So I was here today around consideration of amendments to the MPS and LUB to rezone lands around, to take away protected watershed zones.
So that's the zone
Your
itself.
answer back is that no, it does not preclude it. It does not negate, it does not take away from the fact, and that's all I've heard, to be honest, quite really, through the village plan review, right up until this morning, that, you know, we cannot remove this as a potential water source. So what you're saying to me is, if we decide to remove protected watershed zone, which is why we're here, it does not take away from the fact that we can still keep this on the list as a potential water source.
Correct.
Okay.
And council would have several options to
Absolutely, just
continue.
wanted that, black and white, thank you.
Sharon, were you next?
Well, I'll speak. There's two sides here, but I really feel we need to defer the decision and come up with a compromise. It really hit home to me when, you know, landowners that own property for centuries that was handed down means something. And they have a right to use their land. I can understand that. But we also need potential water source. So I would be very comfortable to defer the decision, but we have to come up with a compromise. And, you know, there was a gentleman here that spoke about some ideas. I think there needs to be a compromise. You have to be able to use the land. Maybe it's 300-meter setback. Maybe it's something else. But I think defer the decision and come up with something the property owners can use the land.
I just want to make something clear, because I was advised by my legal advisors that we can't just defer the decision. We would have to defeat the motion and then direct staff to come up with that solution that addresses the concerns of both parties.
Okay.
That's what they're telling me. So
Okay.
What would happen if there's no motion?
Well, then I don't know what happens if there's no motion. Sam, what happens if we don't vote at all? I don't think we can do that.
That was the question
I know I don't know the answer.
It would stay the same. That in effect would be a deferral.
Yeah.
You know what you can do, but you still have to deal with this motion at some point in time. Not some version of this.
My dilemma is this. I would support the motion if I thought there was not going to be a compromise. Because we got to do something for the landowners.
Yeah.
Well, I think that if we defeat the motion,
we need some commitment somehow that we're going to accommodate, not basically everything, but we have to open up the use of that land to the landowners.
So I think if we were to defeat the motion and then make another motion to direct staff to come up with a compromise that works and still provides protection to the water, but allows for far less restrictive policies on the issue. I mean, that's the only path I know of that works.
How long does something like that take?
Yeah, that doesn't help us right now at all.
It doesn't help you in the morning, but I don't know if I can.
But I mean, is this like a 6-month thing, a year thing? Is it gonna be, within reason time?
I can't get back into the discussion, but I do understand the concern about time frame. And I wish I could answer it. All I can tell you is this wouldn't be quite so complex as some of the other things we're doing, because it would just be a change. We'll designate it as some sort of rural development or whatever, Yes, well, that's right. It depends on how much consultation people want in order to get it all done. But I think if they could come back with a plan that made some sense, just a designation of the zone that still offered reasonable protection and also allowed for reasonable development, that it wouldn't take very long.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, so I know this probably isn't the popular answer that people want to hear, but this is probably the last. There may be one more special council meeting if we need to for an in-camera item. But this is probably the last time that this council will meet. And so we would need to get some direction from the next council on what they would like to see. Would they like a committee? Would they like us to look at the level of engagement, all of that? It would really push this into the next council. Not to say that it would be, a year from now that we would be looking at this. It might be, but it would be more than a couple months probably. We would be looking at probably 3 or 4 months before, usually as a rezoning request when it comes to council for consideration, we say 3 to 6 months is the time frame. So once you go to council, get that direction, we would probably be looking around a similar time frame for that.
But if we gave that direction now, then at least it'd be on the books now.
Yeah.
And it would, if a new council wants to take it off the books, then I guess that's up to them.
That's right.
Yes.
I'm not sure what we're trying to accomplish there. So I'm not. Is lakeside zoning an option? I guess my question is, would that sort of answer some of the concerns?
So we considered lakeside zoning. That was one of the considerations.
I want to say a little to it. We talked about doing, I know Councillor Vina was one of the ones who brought it up about we sort of spot check with the lakeside zone, we're picking and choosing, and we talked about looking at the entire municipality as lakeside zoning. Is that an option? No, I'm just wondering what that would do and would it answer some of the questions?
Sure.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, so we've had several discussions around lakeside zoning. Most recent one was when this came forward with the recommendation from the Planning Advisory Committee for the 300-meter application of that zone, and council decided at that time that our policy has been and our practice has been that lakeside zone gets applied at the request of the homeowners around the lake. So they decided that in this case, the most appropriate zone to replace the watershed protected zone would be the mixed use zone. So it still is on the table as a possibility. You could reduce that lakeside zone to 50 meters, 100 meters. Council directing that would be against our past practice and the discussions we've had in the past about it being driven by, the requests being driven by the people who live around that lake. However, at this point, we're in a public hearing. We've done first reading for the changes in front of us. And so as part of this, if we were to consider lakeside zoning, I think you would need to say no to the request in front of you. You would need to then give staff direction to come back with a report on a rezoning for the lakeside zone and an appropriate distance for the lakeside zone and the implications for that, and give first reading to that, do a public hearing for that. It would be a simple process.
It's all I know how to do. Andre?
I think the recommendation from the committee was to apply some sort of lakeside zone, which doesn't prohibit residential development. It just prohibits things like campgrounds and sort of that heavier commercial type uses, which I think, because I grew up with all the people that own land around that lake, I think that they would be amenable to those kind of restrictions. So, you know, if we had mixed use with a lakeside overlay, and we actually petitioned the province to actually identify Spectacle Lake.
That's right.
As a potential water supply, which we don't have that protection now, that would actually regulate regulate activities like pesticide use, fertilizer. It would restrict the number of livestock you could have near the lake and all that stuff. Those are the kind of restrictions you should have if you actually are serious about protecting the water supply. That's what you have in place. What we have now doesn't actually prohibit any of that stuff. And
it's just a run bylaw.
Yeah, so there's two things at odds here. There's a lot of the discussion that deals with the viability of the water supply, and you know, at the time we brought this forward, we took the staff report and believed it, and we decided we would just zone it mixed use like any other lake in that area. And since then, we're sort of walking back on that and saying, well, let's maybe keep it as a potential water supply. Well, okay, fine. But I think Councillor Shadford's idea of applying the lake overlay will actually give you probably most everything that you need to give the following the spirit of those heavy uses that you don't want. And if we can at the same time in parallel go to the province and actually identify it as a potential water supply, whether it happens or not, that will regulate the activities that actually would be detrimental to a water supply. And to me, that's a good middle ground that we can actually move forward with today, rather than going back and trying to invent a new zone that doesn't exist. Because that process, let's be honest with it, that's not going to be a short process. I think we got a bunch of tools in our kit right now that we can take out, and it will do pretty much everything we need to do.
Do we know whether or not, if we ask for a provincial designation as a water supply, whether or not they would give it to us?
No. All we have are the guidelines right now that are printed, and it says you can request the minister to consider that for potential water supply.
If I can see no reason why they would ever say, they would never say no. There would be no reason for them to. That wouldn't make sense. If a municipality is saying this is a potential water supply, they would be crazy for them to say no.
I don't know. Does anyone else wish to speak? Yes, Tina?
Yes, I just want to make a couple of statements before we move into the motion part of things, and it might be out of place here, but I just don't want us to adjourn and then go. But I just want to thank the people that, and I'm not saying this lightly, just to make myself look good. I really do sincerely thank the people that turned out today to speak, and I know absolutely it's not easy. It wasn't that many years ago that I actually, as a resident, spoke to the District of Lunenburg Council on something that was important to me. And I was sitting there, after sitting here, and I was as nervous as heck over there. So I've always placed a tremendous weight on property owners and those that are actually, if you will, directly impacted with any of my deliberations and decisions that I ultimately land on. It's not always been the popular decision by great mobs of people, such as South Canoe Wind Farm. That wasn't a popular decision. I voted against that because I wasn't happy with the setback because it impacted the people that lived there. Sherbrooke Lake, public access, and Sherbrooke Lake, lakeside zone. Again, not popular decisions that I made, but it was always the people of impact that made me go in the direction that I was going. And so I just, the long-term inheritors of the lands there. Second thing I want to say, the warden opened up with that, and that was around the staff And I just want to say that I also place a tremendous weight on staff input, the staff research, and what the staff have brought to this table. And I will say very clearly that I am a better counselor because of staff. And it's been very, very, very upsetting to me in terms of all of our sessions where people are not being very nice about staff. And so I just wanted to say that, and I would feel less about myself if I didn't say that, so that's all I wanted to say. So we'll move forward on motion.
Yeah, no, I wish I knew the exact best way to move forward. I guess that's what I'm having my struggles with. I mean, I want to come up with a solution that works for both parties. Just not sure what it is.
Okay. But Tara did state that we'd like to have a meeting again next week. And if that's the case, we could get some of those answers.
I don't know that we can get much more for you for next week than we are today, and we would be in a position where I don't know that I would recommend that the council give first reading. I don't think Garth can prepare those.
Okay, so second question. How would it look if we did place the Lakeside zone, thank you. How would that work in conjunction with our motion today?
We can't make it happen today is the problem. Yeah.
If we defeated the motion today and the residents of Sheriff Brook Lake came forward with a request to have Lakeside zone implemented, Spectacle Lake, sorry, have that request from them immediately, would that make it happen?
Well, we get it started, that's
if you said the request has to come, normally.
That's been our practice. It doesn't mean that council can't change that. The discussion has been around precedent.
It would make much more sense if it came from them, because if it doesn't come from them, they're not satisfied with it, we may be back in the same position. But if that request came from them, it would make it much simpler.
But it may not be the Lakeside zone that we want at the end of the day.
No, it could be some middle ground or whatever, and that's what I don't, and somehow that would require a public hearing too for that kind of, so it's not simple, I guess. Andre?
I guess I feel like the committee, the Municipal Planning Advisory Committee had recommended a 300-meter lakeside zone around Spectacle Lake, I think.
That's right.
Yeah. And that still allows development, but it prohibits heavy commercial development, as you know. To me, I think that is an acceptable middle ground in conjunction with staff making application to environment to designate this as actually a water supply and getting the activities regulations that we need. To me, we can move forward with mixed use. We can make the motion immediately that we give notice for the lakeside. We can do that whether we get the petition or not. And then we can also give direction to staff to make application to the province as designating Spectacle Lake as a potential water supply. To me, those three things can happen today, and we'd be okay, I think.
I don't know if staff has any, I'm only assuming,
I'd just like to speak on behalf of the municipal planning. Sharon and I sat there and we listened to all the arguments, and that's where we come up with the compromise of 300 meters. It's probably not, it limits to some of the building that you can build by the lake, but we felt that this 300-meter setback would accommodate the landowners compromise-wise, and hopefully the people that wanted to protect Spectacle Lake as a water supply. And just to get to Tina's point, nothing prohibits in 10 years if Spectacle Lake is identified and we want to move forward with Spectacle Lake, what would stop us? We have all the land along the lake, most of it. You could put whatever infrastructure you needed there. So if someone can explain to me why that's not a compromise, that's the part that I don't get. So I'm in favor of a motion today that'll take the lakes, the watershed designation off, and take the recommendation of MAPAC, which is a 300-meter setback, and changing the zone to mixed use.
Yes, you can say something, yes.
Sorry, Sam.
Yeah, typically, motions for council has the ability to amend the motion midstream, because it's on the table.
Okay, so the motion is, what is the motion?
Well, I finished. We have a motion now on the table. It's considered. The difference here is the public hearing process, and when you give notice of intent of this motion, you advertise it, and that's what people get, and that's that you're going to be discussing. So when it comes time for a decision, you can't substantially change that motion because that's what you advertised to the public. Because otherwise you completely change the motion when it comes to a decision time, and it wouldn't be what people were told was going to be decided. So this motion may make perfect sense, but it's not on the table. I think it's something you would have to deal with this motion that is on the table, and then
with no solution.
No, but then yes, and then you can go forward with another solution.
So are we able to do it in 2 jumps? Can we move it to mixed use and then separately make a motion to direct staff to make the application to petition the province to make this a water supply, and then give notice to apply the water plan, and then we'll have another public hearing for adding
You could do it separate motions. Once you've dealt with this motion,
yeah,
then
just two.
We'd have to do that in the council meeting, though. Or can we do that?
We're in council now.
We're in public hearing.
Yeah, but we're also sitting as council.
You're also sitting as council.
I just want somebody to give me the best path forward that we can address what I think every one of us wants to find a way to protect the water course or the watershed and allow for some development of some description by the property owners that doesn't have a negative impact. And I think that's where we want to go. It's just how do we get there?
I mean, what happens if we lift it though and the province won't give us the water protection? So I'm leaning towards leaving it protected and then go for the other stuff.
Yeah, if you leave it protected for the time being, then it gives us the opportunity to develop a better plan. That's all I'm saying.
What have we been doing? Hooray. No, I haven't done enough research though.
I can't let the public speak anymore for years. Sorry.
No. So thank you. So, councillors of church, again, I also place great faith in our committees of council. So I know it's in the public hearing, it was in the documents leading up to this, and I dealt with it. So, but it was the MPAC motion. Refer to council. The
300 meters.
The 300 meter.
That's
No, I'm just, again, committee of council.
Yeah, it's just that isn't what we're.
Two motions.
I don't know. I think we all want to do this, accomplish it. It's just a question of the process we used to do.
Why was it not prepared before today? If you knew that there was going to be more information needed to make a decision today, why was that not prepared? I feel like it's a disservice to us all right now to be allowed to vote.
I'm going to try to answer, but I can't let you speak anymore. We didn't know precisely what we were going to do. All we were dealing with was the recommendation from council, and that's what the public hearing is all about. And I can't change what the public hearing is all about. It's based on that recommendation from council. So there was no, until you have a public hearing and you hear from the public, you don't necessarily know the path you're going down.
That's why you have to public hearing.
Yeah, that's why you have it.
I've been there.
Yes, Derek?
My concern with passing the motion is it would remove the protected watershed zone, in name anyway. I know when it went to PAC, it had a second option there we didn't have apparently.
So
Why can't we leave it?
And then
As a
vote
protected
next
water.
week, what to do the next thing.
the recommendation that came to council originally from PAC was as recommended, to remove the protected watershed zone and to replace it with the lakeside, I think that's what it's called. Lakeside zone at a distance of 300 meters. When council considered that recommendation, they felt that the appropriate thing was to remove it and replace it with the mixed use zone. That is what has been advertised for the public hearing. That's what's in consideration today. So I think what we would need is a motion to deal with that, the matter of the public hearing that's been advertised. And then if you want to do the lakeside zone and keep the protection on there, you could say, or if you want to remove it, you could do a second motion to direct staff to come back with that report.
How do we get to look at the uses in the mixed zone to see if those uses are appropriate? Because if you look at the uses, there are likely some in there that we would not want.
So that was part of Berth's report. Berth could probably speak to that better than I could of what the current uses are in the mixed use zone.
Just, I'm gonna ask a question because here's something I'm concerned about. If we vote today to approve the recommendation and remove the zone, then tomorrow morning, people could make application to do all kinds of things.
Yes.
Because we don't have the 300-meter setback in place yet. And that's where my trouble is. We need to, you know, like, I mean.
As soon as we give notice, though, doesn't that freeze it? Or as soon as we give notice
Notice of intent to, so it's not a freeze. What the notice of intent does, once you give notice of intent, and actually it's not notice of intent, it's first reading, once you give first reading to a change. So you don't have a change in front of you to give first reading to. Once you give first reading to an amendment, then the development officer cannot issue a permit that conflicts with either the old regulations or the new bylaw. So that's what it does. It's not really a freeze of any kind. It's that any permit that's issued has to be consistent with the land use bylaw that's proposed and the land use bylaw amendments that exist, or the land use that exists now. I think I got that right, Niger? Yeah.
But we can't give first notice of first reading.
We don't have anything to give first notice to.
That's the problem.
Well, I would need to talk to staff to see if we could try to get an offer next week, but there are so many priorities right now that it would be difficult to get those amendments and bring that all forward right now. As a full staff report with the full because we would need full policy analysis. And you'd have to go through PAC generally. I mean, you could give direction not to go through PAC, but because this is a rezoning.
Well, it's their recommendation.
Right, because this is a rezoning and it's appealable, all of that stuff, UARB, we have to consider making sure we follow the proper process. We would need to do the policy analysis, and I don't think that policy analysis could be done for next week. Unfortunately.
Isn't it already done? Isn't it already done? That was the recommendation. It was.
The policy analysis that was done was for removal of the watershed protection zone. So you have that policy analysis. You don't have the policy analysis full out for the lakeside zone at whatever distance, right? So you could bring back the existing report next week, and if you were comfortable with what the analysis is done in the existing report, the report you previously received in council, you could use that.
Without going to public hearing?
No, you have to still give first reading, go to public hearing, do all of that. So you could give first notice next week, I guess, based on the previous report that you had, previous staff report.
That would work.
And,
So if we just don't deal with this today, and you have that report next week, so I know what we're voting on.
no, I think you have to deal with this week and give us direction. Am I incorrect?
Well, he's just telling.
You can defer.
This will have to be dealt with.
It has to be dealt with.
But we don't have to do it today, we can
You can
defer
defer a decision on this today.
because we're looking for more information
Okay.
and clarity.
Give us, yeah.
Just defer, and then come back and possibly can with what best information you can for next week.
I think we understand what we're trying to accomplish.
I know we all do, but it's just habit.
So let's take a few days to sort of put a plan together. But it's got to give the owners more flexibility. I mean,
Yes,
the bottom
and that's what I want to do, is give them flexibility and protect it all at the same time.
Motion to defer.
Somebody want to make that one?
Make a move to defer the decision until
Next Thursday, I think next Thursday we're going to meet one way or the other.
next Thursday.
Do we have a seconder?
Second.
Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed, motion is carried. That's the best. Okay, come on. Yes, we can have a break before we cancel. Yes, I need to go to the bathroom. Motion to adjourn, people? So moved. Second. Okay, all those in favor, let us still here.